Welcome inside another edition of Mic'd Up here on Pittsburgh Sports Live, Pittsburgh Sports Now, and all throughout the Now family of networks. Mic'd Up is, of course, presented by Martin Lawn Services at 412-849-5894. And we're going to have a fun show here as we almost get to the weekend here in this wild week in terms of the sports world. Normally July maybe not as popping, but it certainly is for some scandal and for some action. We're going to talk about Major League Baseball getting stuck with their pants down because some players are literally being asked to pull their pants down in the middle of games, and really how Major League Baseball has been handling that sticky situation they now find themselves in with some prominent pitchers and the game in general. And then also kind of what we're watching right now, because Stanley Cup final almost here, the NHL playoffs in full swing. We're looking at a game 7 in the semifinals, what used to be the conference final, a little different this year. And the NBA's conference final is actually going on. A lot of action, a lot of ratings, even some ratings being pulled from this area. Pittsburgh doesn't have an NBA team, but if you look at the numbers, Pittsburgh's watching maybe more than some people think they are, and the country's watching maybe more than some people think they are. Mike Vakovican, Mike Osti here. And Mike, it's the headline everywhere, whether it affects the team or not in your market. The Pirates haven't had to have a pitcher. JT Brubaker yet has not been asked to take his belt off, but who knows? That could be coming. Max Scherzer, future Hall of Famer, prominent pitcher to say the least. He was asked to show if he had any sticky stuff. Joe Girardi, a prominent manager, was the one who asked him, and that caused Max Scherzer to be very, very upset, again, to say the least, staring him down, going to the dugout, a little disrespect shown by both teams. Didn't unfold, but certainly created a firestorm of reaction. And Sergio Romo later on that night for the Oakland A's made a little bit of a mockery of it when he was asked, where he literally pulled his pants down. He didn't see anything. The jersey's below there, but he basically said, "Okay, you want to see my belt? I'm gonna make this look ridiculous." We've seen this also throughout Major League Baseball with some other examples. And of course, this is being stemmed from Major League Baseball cracking down on pitchers using sticky stuff. Garrett Cole, former Pirate, Tyler Glasnow, former Pirate, as they were the prominent pitchers to really speak out against this immediately. They both thought Major League Baseball was going too hard, too quick, and Tyler Glasnow even went as far to say Major League Baseball should have just let this go until the offseason. They did not. They wanted to react. I'd imagine a lot of that's for PR, and they thought probably people would want them to crack down on something that maybe is a cheating scandal because they dragged their feet for so many years on the steroid scandal, and then that unfolded to be a complete cloud over the sport where some great players can't even get in the Hall of Fame. I'd imagine they don't want to go down that road again here with the pitchers, but it also feels like they got egg on their face. This has become a mockery of it. How has Major League Baseball handled things, and what should they do? Because obviously you don't want to just allow pitchers to quote unquote cheat. Maybe it's not even cheating since it's been going on forever, but having a pitcher have to take his belt off, take his hat off, and pull his pants down in the middle of a game, that just can't be the way this is. There has to be another way than this.
Yeah, I'm like a lot of subjects. I'm torn on this subject because I'm totally for doing what's right and cracking down on a player getting advantage. But I do want to say this. It's funny that Major League Baseball is worried about teams or players getting advantages, an unfair advantage in the league. Sure. And they're the only professional sports league that has no salary cap.
Right, that is an unfair advantage.
Correct. Yeah, to where the Yankees and the right. Red Sox and all those teams have $200 million payrolls compared to 50. And if they don't think that's some sort of unfair advantage, that's one of the reasons why a lot of people think Major League Baseball is a joke. But
right.
To this topic, I don't know how you're gonna. I agree with what they're doing as far as their general idea of what they want to accomplish, but the way it's going on right now can't continue.
This is really upsetting. It's a bad advertisement for the sport. Imagine being a casual fan or a fan who doesn't like baseball and having someone convince you to like the sport by watching Sergio Romo and Max Scherzer pull their pants down in the middle of a game.
Yeah, and the night that Wander Franco, the number 1 or 2 prospect in all of baseball,
100%,
hits a his first major league hit, a guy that everyone's been talking about leading up to this point. His first hit's a home run, a game 3-run home run. He's a young, flamboyant guy, and that's the same night as the Girardi Scherzer circus took place. And what do you think? What do you think led Sports Center in all those debate
100%. Yeah,
we're talking about Wander Franco. They're talking about it's.
right.
I don't know how you do it though, and I don't agree with. Somebody came out yesterday. A prominent pitcher came out and says
Verlander, I believe. Yeah,
that if a team loses, if a team loses or a manager loses their request to interview a pitcher, they should lose a replay. That's not what it's about. It's there has to, and I don't have the answer that they Major League Baseball needed to think this out a little bit more. Maybe should.
Oh yeah, I don't think Rod Manfred thinks too much out. I gotta say.
Well, he a goof to begin with. That guy, his tenure is. I can't believe how long he's. I don't think he's done anything good for Major League Baseball. The way everything he's handled has been a disaster. I might agree with the fact that maybe they should have. It's been going on this long. You have an whole off season to come up with a way to enforce this, letting players know about this from both sides. But every night seeing on Twitter players being inspected is, I like what Dave Roberts of the Dodgers said last night. He just said, hey, I'm not going to stop games. I'm not going to do this unless I'm 100% sure that we have very good reason to believe that a player is doing this. So,
yeah, and I hear you. I will say, though, that I don't think they could have waited the offseason, because imagine this scenario, Mike. If you just let it go and then wait to the offseason, imagine Game 7 of the ALCS, NLCS, and a team wins, a pitcher pitches really well, and then later on we find out that pitcher had sticky stuff. We've seen this in the playoffs. The fans would go nuts. The losing fans would never agree that it was a loss. You'd have New Orleans Saints situation where they're literally still claiming they didn't lose the NFC title game a few years ago. So I don't know if that's a road you want to go down, because Major League Baseball already had a couple years ago where a world championship has been stained with the Astros scandal, with the drum banging and the stealing of signs. And no matter what anyone thinks of that, there are people, including players in the sport, on the Dodgers, on the Red Sox, on teams they beat for that run, that claim they didn't lose. They claim that they feel there was an asterisk, that they're not saying they didn't lose that. They lost that year. So that's not something the sport wants. They had to do something. I don't mind, though, if Major League Baseball would employ something like, if you try to claim a pitcher had something and they don't, then you lose a timeout. Because if you claim the pitcher had something on them and they do have something on them, then you wouldn't lose a timeout. It would be very similar to how the NFL handles replay.
Right.
Or how the NHL in years past, this could be very comparable. The NHL in years past, we don't see it much anymore, but they handled where a lot of coaches would try to look at someone's stick. It's actually happened in the Cup final years ago. Dominic Hasek, a Hall of Famer, had his stick looked at, and he got upset. It was a Scherzer reaction, but that was a situation. It stopped the game. I get where Dave Roberts is coming from, and it's mature of him to say that, because Major League Baseball, more than the other sports, they have a problem of games taking too long. It is the only sport. There's not a clock. I cannot tell you game starts at 7. It's going to end at this time. There is no way to know that for sure. We've seen Pirate games start at 7:05 and end at midnight, for crying out loud. And they've tried to bring it down a little bit with timing pitchers and how long you can have mound visits, etc. Umpires telling pitchers, hey, you can't warm up forever. Batter can't warm up forever. But still, the games are taking 4+ hours, even for bad teams. You can't have that. But right now, unless they do something in terms of a timeout or in terms of the amount of usage or something like with replay, because they're doing that with replay where they get a couple per game, then I don't know how you'd be able to stop a manager from just saying a pitcher has sticky stuff for the sure purpose of just disrupting their momentum. Right now, there's no reason to do that. As much as we want to watch a game go quick, we don't like watching this. We think it's crazy, even though you can't have just people cheat. If I'm a manager, Mike, and a pitcher's dealing, if I'm dealing with Max Scherzer, 100% I'm saying let's stop that momentum, because you know how pitchers work. Even your son playing baseball, you know how pitchers work. If you stop them, talk to them, warm up, people are singing and players, it ends up 30, 35 minutes. They lose all rhythm, and they could easily turn around. Look at rain delays. They could easily turn around sometimes and just flat out suck.
How about this I just thought of this. I don't even know if this would be.
I like the thinking during the show.
Why not before every inning, Major League Baseball employs a guy that checks, and he's in one of the dugouts. Or
wouldn't that make the game take longer though? Because then you're checking.
No, but the 2 minutes in between.
Okay.
Before he heads out to the mound, every inning, okay, a player is inspected. His glove.
Yeah.
I
like that. How would you do that for relief pitchers though before they come in? Because sometimes that's middle of an inning.
Well, maybe you put somebody out in the.
I
don't know, but yeah. I think I think that would be a start, because once you're out there, it'll be real.
As long as it doesn't make the game take longer, it's in that time.
Checks your hat.
Yeah.
You go out there and deal, unless there's no other place you could have the. I don't know.
At the very least, it should be quicker, and this should be the same thing with replay. I don't get why, if you're going to check them mid-game, no matter when you check them, okay, nobody wants cheating, or at least people shouldn't want cheating. You check them. It should not take a half hour to check a guy. And then you got to also have some control over games. If you check somebody and there's nothing there, I understand Max Scherzer's upset, but you can't just let him crawl to the dugout to take another 10 minutes. They look back and forth. Then Girardi went out there, talked to him. You had players going back and forth. You got to have some control. You got to, they ejected Girardi, but that was another 15. You just got to have some. You got to have some control. I think Rob Manfred tried to get ahead of this, because he said, "Okay, there's cheating. We know people don't like that. Let's get rid of it. We don't want to have the Astros again or the steroid scandal." And somehow that was handled poorly too. I can't think of a commissioner that, even the worst commissioners of all, Mike, they have something that they did really well. I can point some examples. The Goodell did well on some things, even though people don't like them. Nothing. Rob Manfred called the World Series trophy a piece of tin, and now you're having games take for. He has done nothing well. But
who's going to be the goof? The first goof to actually, with all the attention that's on, it's going to happen,
right?
To get caught with this, with all the attention.
There's still players taking steroids, so yeah.
Yeah, well, that's a little different, but this,
right.
With all the attention right now that's on this right now, there is going to be somebody that's going to go out to that mound thinking,
understand, yeah,
they're going to beat the system. They're not going to check me, and it's that person. That person should get an extra. The first guy should get an extra 10 games just for stupidity.
Yeah, you would think.
Aside from the 10 games you're going to get for the suspension, you should get another 10 for just being that dumb to go out there in the climate in baseball right now.
It's going to happen, 100%.
No,
and who, hopefully not to certain guys, so we don't have a star pitcher out of there. But who knows? It's going to happen. It'll also be interesting to see how players react to it, because they've been very, very vocal, more than normally baseball players are these past couple of years, certainly on social media. We will see how that reaction rolls. We'll see maybe if it's a member of the Pirates, how interesting that could be here for our local coverage. It will definitely happen. And the compare to that, maybe, and this was stupid, but maybe less stupid because you could take the wrong bat, maybe. But in the height of the steroid scandal, in the height of it, Sammy Sosa took a cork bat out there. So not as dumb, though, because you probably thought you wouldn't get that check. Nobody checked cork bats. The problem is his bat broke, which it never breaks usually for a home run hitter. This will be really dumb because everyone's getting checked. And every single game a manager's going to check somebody, because why not? Unless the pitcher's getting shelled, why not? A lot more on this. It's going to unfold every night. I check social media if you're not watching games. If you're not a baseball fan, this is entertaining potentially for you. So that maybe that's a way to tune in and get some ratings for MLB. Mike Fukovic and Mike Osti here, mic'd up as we're mic'd up about this. And I'd love to get some pictures mic'd up during games while this is going on. Get Scherzer or somebody mic'd up during a game while this is happening and see what he says under his breath on the mic.
Yeah.
To wrap things up there on our Thursday show, the NBA playoffs are in full swing. The NBA playoffs and the conference finals, really exciting games. I actually was telling Mike beforehand that this is amazing because you always get LeBron, you always get KD, you always get similar cast of characters. And yet, franchise-wise, the most recent champion for these Final Four in the NBA is Milwaukee in 1971 with Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and Oscar Robinson leading them to their only title. Atlanta back in 58 before the merger. Clippers and Suns have never won. The Suns are the most recent team to be in a finals, and that was back in 93 with Barkley facing Jordan and the Bulls. So it has been a while for these franchises in these Final Four. And then you have over in the NHL, the semifinals, with it a little different this year in the format because of the year after the pandemic, or still in the middle of the pandemic. You have some historic franchises. Some have not won in a while. Montreal has not won in a while since 93 too. No Canadian team has won with any of the Canadian franchises since 93. The Islanders way back in the 80s, and they're doing it right now, going to a Game 7. The Lightning, of course, the defending champs, looking to go back again. But and Vegas, they haven't won. Granted, they were in the final in their inception inaugural season. So maybe people eventually are going to start getting sick of Vegas as they're back again. Mm-hmm. But just out of excitement value, what are you watching right now? Which one of these are you watching more? We, of course, have an NHL team here in Pittsburgh that we cover, but we don't have an NBA team. But if you look at the numbers, the NBA is, once again, doing really well ratings-wise, even in markets without a team, even in markets that have an NHL team that's not around right now, say in Pittsburgh. But now some star power that normally is there, not there, and some franchises over there in the NHL that maybe this is an exciting Final Four, but not great for the sport because you have some historic franchises, and you do have New York, but not the Rangers. You don't have the thoroughbred media market teams they would love to see. You don't have Boston, LA, Detroit, Chicago, the Penguins, the Capitals, Ovechkin, Crosby. You don't have that this year.
No, I'm actually this is the first time I'm historic. I don't watch a ton of NBA during the season. If there's a game, maybe a good matchup or something, I might watch it, but it's not appointment TV for me. But I've really enjoyed following the NBA this postseason. I don't know if it's I think it's a combination of how competitive the games have been, but also the young talent.
They're all down to the wire. Yeah,
the young talent is unbelievable. And I'll say this about the NHL: I just can't. I can't pull myself to watch that. It's just, to me, it just bores the hell out of me. It just,
well, Montreal, the Islanders, the style of play.
Yeah, it's I couldn't see myself. I can't find myself wanting to sit there for a couple hours watching that. There's nothing compelling about it.
Right.
The NBA is the young talent that is in the league, and them stepping up and getting their teams to where they are right now is awesome. Trae Young last night, 48, 49 points. Booker,
yeah, on his back. Trae Young's crazy. And that Hawks team was bad at the beginning of the year. They fired a coach. They brought in somebody else. They've been great since. Yeah, they're kind of under the radar. And what you're also seeing in the NBA this year, Mike, we have been, and I'm not saying anything against this because it has certainly been a decade plus of players moving around, deciding their own destinies, and all these big threes with all these stars getting together. And the history of the sport, it has always been star power. So Barkley and Magic and these players of the past upset about it. Shaq. Every championship in the NBA history has always had 2 or 3 stars or Hall of Famers galore, except for a couple. It's always been the history of the sport. Tons of Hall of Famers over those dynasties, but these Final Four, Kawhi being out, so you really just got Paul George, who, of course, misses those free throws. That's bad for him. Trae Young leading his team as the only star. This is like an Allen Iverson-type run in 01. He's carrying him on his back. Yeah, they're a solid team, but he's the lone star. Giannis is really the only star as a 2-time MVP with Milwaukee, despite Middleton and others being good. And then with Phoenix, you have a cast of characters. You have Booker, who's maybe that star for them. And then Chris Paul being out a couple games because of COVID. But this is not star power driven with 2 or 3 or 4 Hall of Famers. This is one star, some solid core, all-star players and teams that haven't won, and young talent, like you mentioned, Trae Young. This is a coming out party for him for casual fans. So that's a positive, I think.
I think you got two. I don't think you have two just stars with Young and Booker. I think you have superstar. I don't want to use the word Hall of Fame yet, but I don't know that there's a better. If you had asked me a starting 5 to start with in the NBA right now, Devin Booker's in that top 5 somewhere.
I've heard people compare him to Kobe, which is crazy.
Yeah, Stephen A. Smith did that the other day and said this guy he can tell right now this guy has the it factor. But with the Mavs, with my son's with me here, and I don't want to try to mispronounce his name because then
Luka Doncic.
Yes, yeah. Well, okay. He gets really mad when I mispronounce people's names, which is a bad thing. But I was calling Luka, that guy.
Oh man.
Yeah, the amount of young talent that the NBA right now has to market is unreal, and maybe better than it's ever been. And It is so refreshing not to have to see LeBron and his tired act. I wanted to throw a neighborhood party when the New Jersey Nets lost, just to not have Kyrie and
James Harden, Kevin Durant.
I don't really dislike Kevin Durant that much. I don't have a problem with him, but James Harden and Kyrie is just. If I don't have to see those, I think the NBA is for it just to not have, and I think that's a big part of it too. Is the freshness, exciting basketball,
and they could be back again next year. Easily could be back again next year. It was interesting for KD.
Well, the rumor now, Mike, is that and this will totally happen because this is the way that's the only thing I hate about the NBA is the 3-man packs as far as getting players on teams together. Russell Westbrook to the Lakers.
Oh yeah, rumored. Damian Lillard maybe. So that's going to be the offseason. Of course, the NBA, like the NFL, will churn the rumor mill because actually sometimes it's even for players' marketability. When you lose, like the Blazers losing with half the Denver Nuggets being hurt was kind of crazy with those great games by Damian Lillard. 40 plus multiple games and they lost those games. But he's a fantastic player, but that's another player that by losing, he got in more of the national conversation about where he's going to go, what they're going to do. That almost helps your brand, and that is the NBA offseason. Yeah, young players. The NBA is always great at marketing players, but they now have so much to market. That's a positive. It was interesting. I saw Dan Le Batard tweet this. Kevin Durant earned more respect for losing a game 7 with an historic performance than winning 2 finals MVPs. Because as you mentioned, his 2 finals MVPs, he jumped on a 73-9 team, an historic team. And yes, he was the best player, but they were stacked. It's easy to do that when you get spacing. But he had to carry the Nets with all those injuries, Kyrie and James, not 100%, Kyrie out those games. And he just had a fantastic series, but it wasn't enough. So the NBA is looking well. They're looking good. Everything's positive for them just as we close. Is it bad for the NHL in comparison, especially with everything going on for the NBA right now? And they always have that advantage rating-wise with the casual fan, a lot more NBA fans than NHL, that you have some kind of boring teams. You have Tampa again. Maybe if Tampa pulls off a dynasty year, goes back-to-back, is that bad market-wise? There's some stars there. Stamkos is a star. They don't have the star power marketability like the NBA, but boring hockey. You're going into new networks. You're going to have major players talking about the sport on they're going to have TNT shows like the NBA going head to head with those sometimes next year. That's going to probably be bad since the NBA's version's an Emmy winner every time they breathe. And it just, the ratings for the NHL aren't there again. And I'm an NHL guy, but I do feel like it's not entertaining hockey. I am watching the NBA more than the NHL. And I love the NBA. I always watch the NBA too. But I would tune on the NHL more normally than I am right now. Sometimes I'm not flicking back. I don't want to turn off Suns Clippers. I don't want to turn off Bucks Hawks to go watch trap hockey for 2.5 hours. And maybe the goaltender having a solid night could be entertaining in that way. But
Yeah, it's just bad. And I don't know what ESPN is. I think the biggest problem that with the NHL, and I've always thought this, they're it's almost like soccer in that their fans totally in the media totally focus on ratings and
Oh, they want you to like their sport.
it's never going to become ever
Yeah.
going to become the NFL, the NBA, or Major League Baseball. It's just not. No matter what they do, there's never going to be, when you have a city that has a team.
It kind of was in the 90s a little bit.
It's never going to become a national sport.
Right.
People in Washington, the state of Washington, or wherever, Utah, they're not going to care about the NHL. They should just stop focusing on that and worrying about what the ratings are. Make it a good game. Make it best for your fan base so that it's exciting. And maybe you're going to pick up some casual fans. But this thought and focus on what our ratings are, and who cares? Make your game better. And the best thing that I think has come out of these playoffs, and I doubt that it's ever going to change, though, is there's been a ton of focus, maybe more so than I remember in a long time, is how bad the officiating has been as far as the NHL and how it's affecting the play. Normally, you don't have national guys like Pierre LeBrun and Buchagras and guys like that commenting on the officials. They're calling them out now, and hopefully that leads to a change. Maybe something happens in the offseason as far as how they're officiating games in the playoffs, which has been atrocious. Maybe that's the best thing, and that'll make your sport more watchable for fans if their refs actually do their job.
Yeah, I will say that's the same thing. There are some bad calls in the NBA. There are some people that is as fantastic and amazing as the ending of that Suns-Clippers game for the Suns to take a 2-0 lead in the conference finals, and the way they won those games without Chris Paul, and that alley-oop, or the valley-oop, as you could call it down there. There are some that believe that the ball went off a different player and it should have been a different call, and the Suns shouldn't even have had the ball there. So they're both messing up referee-wise, and you hate to see referees so involved in the conversation when you have these great games, but it's worse for the NHL, and it can't happen for the NHL. And they also always have the stain of not handling punishment properly and not making the right calls and penalties, and then you get into this. So I don't know if it's great for the sport, and they really do. Yeah, they're never going to be those sports ratings-wise, and they almost need to. I always hate when middle of a season, primetime game, Crosby, Ovechkin, or you have great competition, great rivalries, and they put it head-to-head with LeBron. You can avoid it. Just avoid him. You're not going to beat him ratings-wise, so you're better off putting it off LeBron on ratings and then having your game. But to gauge it on what you do versus the NBA, which it's just never going to be better no matter what, and that needs to stop being conversation. And even the fans saying there are too many hockey fans too that get mad when the ratings aren't good because not enough people are watching. The like my sport mentality sucks too. If you like your sport, cool, like it.
Exactly.
If somebody doesn't like your sport, too bad. Oh well, they're missing out. You can't get mad if somebody doesn't like what you like. That's just
one thing I want to bring up about the Phoenix real quick is it's cool that Cam Johnson.
And he had a great game in game 2.
Yeah, the local product, WPIL.
Cam Johnson,
Pitt doing well, double digit scoring in both games. And, he's a nice piece. Came out of North Carolina.
He's an impactful player. He is impacting this.
He's slowly building a little bit of a role. And, before too long, when you're a guy like that can shoot like him, he's going to find his way into the starting lineup. If not, he's going to be a valuable first guy coming off the bench as far as being able to provide instant offense. Oh,
he is an impact player. I would like it if the national media would get his name right, because for some reason he continuously gets called Cam Johnson. And unfortunately not getting much playing time in the postseason, but it also is interesting the Suns have another local semi-connection. In the regular season, Javon Carter had a great year for a player off the bench. He's not getting in the postseason, but is a part of that team nonetheless. That'll do it for today's show. Controversy and exciting action. That's the recipe for great shows here moving forward. Mike Vukovic and Mike Osti, of course. Mic'd Up is presented by Martin Lawn Services at 412-849